Good morning, students. Today we are going to see 2.4 The Fall of Troy. Extract 2. Textbook page number 40 to 42. Lines 32 to 81. Now I would like to read extract loudly. Students, you must listen it very carefully. Let's go through the text. The Iliad is the story of Ilium or Troy, a rich trading city in Asia Minor near the narrow sea that leads from the Aegean to the Black Sea. It was well situated both for commerce and agriculture. In front of the city was the sea over which sailed the ships of Troy, carrying goods and grain. At the back rose the high peak of Mount Ida, from which flowed many rivers and streams. The valleys among the hills were well watered and fertile, with corn growing in the fertile fields and cattle feeding on the rich grass of the meadows, while sheep fed on the slopes of the hills. Round their city the Trojans had built a strong wall, so that no enemy should attack them from the sea. Their wall was so broad that people could stand and sit and walk on it. The great gates stood open, and people could go to the seashore outside and come in as they pleased. But in the time of war, the gates would be closed, and then the city was like a strong fortress, quite safer from all attack, protected by the walls surrounding it, as well as by the hills behind. Thus, Troy was a strong city, strongly protected by its walls and strongly defended by its brave soldiers. But all the kings and heroes of Greece had declared war against the Trojans, because Paris, a prince of Troy, had persuaded Helen, wife of a Greek king Menelaus, to elope with him. He had brought her to Troy. The Greeks wanted to take revenge on Troy for the wrong done to Menelaus. They sailed to Troy and laid siege to the city. The Trojans too fought hard, and the siege continued for 10 long years. The fighting went on daily, but the siege did not end. On the one hand, the Greeks could not take the city, and on the other hand, the Trojans could not force them to sail away. Every day, the Trojans came out of their gates, and the Greeks came out of their tents and ships, and the fighting went on. Sometimes there were great battles between the two armies. Sometimes there were single fights between two great heroes. Sometimes the Trojans had the better of it, and sometimes the Greeks. But still the fighting went on. Great heroes on both sides were killed in the course of the war. After leading the defense of his city for 9 years, the brave Hector was at last killed by Achilles, whom none could resist. But Achilles himself was killed later on by a poisoned arrow that entered his heel, the only part of his body where he could be wounded. Still later, Paris himself was killed, also by a poisoned arrow. The Trojans were tired of being shut up in their city, and the Greeks were longing to see their homes again, but still the fighting went on. Let's examine some words and meanings from the given extract. First word, persuaded. Persuaded means convinced. Second word, elope. Elope means run secretly to marry. Next word, siege. Siege means surround enemy town or a building, forcing them to surrender. Now we are going to see important points or detailed explanation of the given extract. Iliad is the most important epic of European literature. The Iliad is the story of Ilium or Troy. And Troy is the most important trading city in Asia. This chapter, The Fall of Troy, narrates the story of the tragic fall of the city Troy. It is written in the Iliad. In this story, a prince of Troy, Paris, had convinced Queen Helen. Helen was the wife of the Greek king Menelaus. The prince eloped Helen with him. Thus, the Greeks wanted to avenge their honor and pride. Here is given the picture of city Troy. City Troy is a rich trading center or rich trading city in Asia, which is near the Black Sea. This city is very prospered with reference to commerce and agriculture. In front of the city, there is the sea over which sailed the ships of Troy carrying goods and grains. At the back, there is the high peak of Mount Ida, from which flowed many rivers and streams. The valleys among the hills were well watered and fertile, with corn growing in fertile fields and cattle feeding on the rich grass of the meadows, while sheep fed on the slopes of the hills. Around the city there was a strong wall which was built by Trojans to protect the city. Due to the strong wall, no one enemy could enter easily in the city. The wall was the city was very strong. It was too broad that people could stand, sit and walk on it. Gates of the wall stood open for the people, so they could walk to the seashore, they could go outside as they pleased. But in the time of war, the gates were closed. The city of Troy was very strong, so it was looking like a strong fortress. City of Troy was very safe and protected city because of that strong surrounding wall, as well as the hills which were behind the city. As we have seen, the city of Troy was a very strong city because of its walls and strongly defended by its brave soldiers. But the king of Greece, King Menelaus, declared the war against Trojans because Paris, the prince of Troy, had persuaded Helen, wife of the king Menelaus. Prince Paris eloped Helen with him. So Menelaus decided to take revenge against Trojans. Therefore, he declared war against Trojans. King Menelaus laid siege to the city of Troy, and Trojans and Greeks they fought with each other for 10 long years. Fighting went on daily, but siege did not end. On the one hand, Greeks could not take the city, and on the other hand, Trojans could not force them to sail away or to run away from the city. Every day, Trojans came out from their gates, and Greeks came out from their tents, and fighting went on. Sometimes there were battles between two armies, and sometimes there were battles between two great heroes. Sometimes Trojans had better, whereas sometimes Greeks had better, but fighting still went on for 10 long years. Great heroes or warriors on both sides were killed in the course of the war. After leading the defense of his city for 9 years, the brave Hector was killed at last by Achilles. And Achilles himself was also killed later on by a poisoned arrow that entered in his heel. At last, Prince Paris himself was killed by poisoned arrow. The Trojans were tired. They wanted to shut up their city And Greeks were also tired. They wanted to see their homes again. But still, fighting went on. In this way, we have seen some important points from the given extract. Now we are going to discuss vocabulary, noun forms. Daily, day. Resist, resistance. Verb forms. Defense, defend. Strong, strengthen. Adjective forms. Fertility, fertile. Safety, safe. Let's discuss grammar questions from the extract. 1. Troy was a strong city. Make it negative. Answer. Troy was not a weak city. Second. The fighting went on daily, but the siege did not end. Change to a complex sentence. Answer is, although the fighting went on daily, the siege did not end. Now we are going to discuss personal response. Here in this question, student, you must write your own opinion regarding to given question. As an example, here is given one question. Do you know what is a myth? Give an example of any mythological story that you have heard or read. Answer is, a myth is a story that is a traditional and historical, based on the beliefs and practices of a particular society. An example of a mythological story would be the tale of Lord Hanuman and how he carried a mountain which had a lot of medicinal plants from the Himalayas to Ravana's empire to save the lives of Lord Lakshman and other soldiers. Students, you can write some different answers regarding to given question because it is the question of personal response, so you must write answer by own as you think. Now I would like to give some activities in assignment for practice. Activity number 1, simple factual. Read the following and name the following. 1. He composed the Iliad and Odyssey. 2nd. He persuaded Helen to elope with him. 3rd. She was the wife of King Menelaus. And 4. He led the defense of Troy for 9 years. Activity number 2, complex factual. Answer the following questions. 1. What was the cause of the 10-year-old war between the Greeks and Trojans? Question number 2. How were the Trojans protected during wartime? Activity number 3, vocabulary. Give the meanings of 1. Elope. 2. Resist. Activity 4, grammar. Sentence number 1. Troy was a strong city. Change the degree of the word strong into superlative degree. Second sentence. The brave Hector was at last killed by Achilles. Change the voice. And activity number 5, personal response. Question is, does the word war remind you to any mythological stories of war that you know of? In this way, I have given 5 activities in assignment for practice. Students, you must read the given extract once or twice and then try to solve the given activities in your classwork. Thank you.